Published by Bethesda Softworks, Doom: The Dark Ages is of course the latest first-person shooter developed by id Software, the studio that popularized the genre in the first place. It serves as a prequel to Doom 2016, chronicling the Slayer's time as a Night Sentinel / weapon of mass destruction for the makers, as partially recounted in the Slayer Testaments of 2016. While The Dark Ages does build off the gameplay philosophies of 2016 and Eternal before it, it was designed from the ground up to be its own thing, stepping away from the vertical flying run-and-gun and quote-unquote fighter jet mechanics of its predecessors in favor of something tankier and horizontally focused, with a major emphasis on bullet-hell dodging and melee combat, leaning the experience more towards the classic Doom titles. However, a throwback, Doom: The Dark Ages is not. While it is an expression of Doom's core DNA, it is truly its own unique beast, within the Doom franchise as well as id's FPS canon. Its setting is also unique for the series, being primarily medieval fantasy. Doom has always featured medieval fantasy elements, primarily found in its hell levels, which naturally make a return. But this is the first time a game in the franchise has put the medieval fantasy elements in the forefront. There's still plenty of high sci-fi elements here too, oh for sure, but the industrial halls of the UAC you will not find here. And much like how Eternal introduced the Maker worlds into the franchise, Dark Ages brings the Lovecraft-inspired cosmic realm, providing a new surreal flavor for the Doom universe. Now, before we move on, while I flashed a warning at the beginning, I want to remind, this video will have major spoilers for the game. This review is coming after the dust has settled from the first wave of reactions, and thus my analysis is going to go a little deeper. So if you have not played The Dark Ages yet and don't want it spoiled, I recommend finishing it and coming back to this video. For everyone else though, buckle up. It's time to get medieval on some demons. Once again, Doom: The Dark Ages has a keen focus on horizontal movement, with far less emphasis on vertical movement compared to its predecessors. Although verticality is still an element here, as the player can glide through the air with the beastly sprint mechanic. Platforming is still a factor too, albeit to a lesser extent compared to Eternal. The big addition is the new melee system, where players can now smack demons up to 3 to 4 times with a cooldown for each hit, with their choice of melee weapon, like steel gauntlets or a hunky flail. It should be noted that the glory kill system from the prior games is mostly absent in favor of this new melee system, although you can still perform them if the player does a leaping finisher. Part of this new melee system is the shield. Its primary function is of course defense, able to block a limited number of enemy attacks. If timed right though, it can also parry green hell bursts, which will stagger demons and open them up for attack, among other things as you gain new weapon abilities. It also has a hefty bash, a great way to rocket through the environment. The shield is also a circular saw, being a replacement for the chainsaw, allowing players to fling it at enemies and stick them with it, once again opening them up for attack amongst other things depending on weapon abilities. It's also handy in exploration, often needed in light puzzle solving. This is also one of the more customizable Doom games, with a host of accessibility options to suit your gameplay, but more importantly, the difficulty options allowing players to tweak things like the overall game speed, enemy aggression, projectile speed, and parry windows. This was something I wasn't expecting to touch, but wouldn't you know it, as I progressed, I found myself ticking up that game speed and shortening those parry windows. Yeah, this is a different vibe for a Doom game, for sure, which admittedly took some warming up to. My first playthrough of the Dark Ages was in line with my first playthroughs of 2016 and Eternal, being that it was an overwhelming hot mess, as I was learning the mechanics, learning demon attack patterns, as well as getting the timing right for parries, not to mention the constant clobbering by the demon hordes, swearing up a storm with every death. Apologies to my neighbors. I wasn't disliking the experience, it was just different, and I wasn't sure if it was good different. Compared to 2016 and Eternal, the early hours of the Dark Ages felt slow and restrictive, in a way that was frustrating me. I was also skeptical of the melee system. While it mechanically felt good, with parries lending a strong visceral feel with their slow-mo, and that shield saw boomeranging throughout in a way that brought fond memories of Kratos' axe from God of War, I couldn't help but feel the melee was a tacked-on feature, at times feeling like it was taking away from and overshadowing the core gunplay, with some fights feeling like I was simply magneting between enemies. You know in 2016 and Eternal how you can sometimes get in a glory kill chain of leapfrogging from kill animation to kill animation? Yeah, it felt a little too much like that to me, which wasn't really what I was hoping for. But then, when the Dark Ages gameplay clicked, it really clicked, and the feelings of it being slow and restrictive simply disintegrated away, and I felt like I was within a blisteringly fast and fluid gameplay system, a well-oiled and well-thought-out combat loop that afforded me a ton of freedom, and my god was it fun. Still screamingly difficult, but difficult in that way where my deaths always felt like my fault and my fault alone, which is exactly what I want from my first-person shooters, and any action game in general, frankly. I want to be pushed to be better. That is my dopamine. And the melee system that initially felt tacked on soon became something I cherished, as I found it masterfully interweaved with the classic gunplay, not at all taking away from it, but rather complementing it, and vice versa. The midpoint of the campaign to the finale was some of the funnest Doom I've ever played. Not without its drawbacks, which I will be getting to, but just consistently fun, with surprises around every corner, whether it be the level scenarios or the ever-deepening mechanics. And just like its predecessors, pure aggression is the key. You're on the verge of death? Good. Double down and get right up in that cyber demon's face and kiss him with your super shotgun. The game will reward you for it. This is a game that wants you to always have that experience of coming inches away from death, only to succeed at the last second with immense reward to keep you addicted. So much so, it wouldn't shock me if these id game designers were playing Bloodborne on their breaks. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm sure they're just drinking coffee and talking shit just like every other office. Some of them likely crying. I was in awe of it. On one hand, it had all the bombastic qualities I hope for in a Doom title, but at the same time, it felt like a completely fresh FPS experience, or at least fresh within the id canon, a novel and inspired take on their classic formula. When I finally finished that campaign, I immediately popped that difficulty up from Ultraviolence to Nightmare and jumped back to the previous levels to 100% them, but also started a fresh campaign on Nightmare as well, hopping back between them without batting an eye. For this second and third-ish playthrough, I challenged myself to not just rely on instincts and parries, but to start understanding the various weapon abilities and systems, and really strategize with them, and it was in this that I really fell in love with this game. The secret sauce of Doom the Dark Ages combat is comprised of two ingredients that go together like yin and yang. The shield saw and everything associated with it, defense, parries, and throwing, along with the weapon abilities. Most of the arsenal has special abilities earned by purchasing upgrades with the glittering prizes found throughout each map. Abilities so powerful and effective, you could consider them alternate fires, and the shield is what triggers most of them, either through parrying or sticking enemies with the saw. So I'll give you an example. One of the upgrades for the classic rocket launcher is the Charge Rocket, wherein after a successful parry for a short window of time, the next rocket is charged up, able to do extra damage, teeing up players to get into a comfy rhythm of parry, rocket, parry, absolutely eviscerating tougher demons in the process. The newcomer chain shot also benefits from a similar upgrade, essentially a ball and chain able to be charged up to demolish armor. When a parry is achieved, the chain shot becomes fully charged, obviously foregoing the charge time, but if the chain shot is fully upgraded so that a charged shot explodes on impact, well, you basically have a fast-acting rocket punch. Come here, you sucker! Give me that stupid heart! Good stuff. The Shredder, the Dark Ages version of the assault rifle, brings with it two powerful abilities. With Pincushion, you can load up a demon with a multitude of spikes, and when they glow yellow, a shield toss will detonate them, killing them or massively damaging them, but also sending splash damage to the demons around them. Whereas with Ricochet, shooting the demon after sticking them with the saw causes the spikes to ricochet to the other demons around them. A similar ability comes with the newcomer grenade launcher, a self-explanatory weapon that harkens to the grenade launchers of past id titles. Once again, shooting a stuck demon will cause cluster bombs to spawn from them, damaging the surrounding demons. A core thing that has defined this new generation of Doom is its resource management gameplay, utilizing combat mechanics to earn health, ammo, and armor, an aspect meant to incentivize aggressive gameplay and dissuade players from running away for pickups. This is expanded on in the Dark Ages in a way that feels more focused and organic in gameplay. Melee attacks earn you ammo and finishers earn you health, analogous to the glory kills of the past games, and the saw will net you drops as well when used against certain enemies. But this time around, weapon mechanics and more importantly, abilities earn you resources as well. A big example is the rocket launcher ability Cannibalism, wherein after achieving a parry, there is a short window where rocket splash damage will heal you, making it my go-to whenever I went head-to-head with a big high-level demon type, giving me big damage and health all at once, with some nice risk-reward too to spice it up. And there are weapon abilities that will replenish specific types of ammo, like the Impaler and the Ravager. And I have to mention that the base shotgun can be upgraded to light demons on fire, providing armor, and when configured right, it can essentially turn into a maintenance weapon between fights, although that 3-round burst upgrade makes it quite formidable in combat too. When I realized that these weapon abilities and the possible combos I could do with them was not only essential for combat, but also for survival, I geared my combat to revolve around them. And with my shield being the primary resource for them, it turned combat into this elegant, blood-stained dance of equal parts melee and firearms, with me rocketing throughout, devastating demons in a matter of seconds that had previously been devastating me. But going even further, you have the rune abilities, special attacks that trigger upon getting a parry, like a shoulder-mounted auto-turret, a hail of spectral daggers, and my favorite, a burst of lightning that will arc to surrounding demons. All of them upgradable, by the way. The Dark Ages can be described as a game with a handful of mechanics that have all these tendrils coming from them, leading to other mechanics and combos that sometimes interact with each other in systemic ways. Speaking of lightning, one of the new weapons of the game, the Cycler, a new version of the plasma rifle that looks and feels an awful lot like Quake's nailgun, it also looks like two old-school plasma rifles duct taped together, has an ability to electrify demons, and when they're killed, that lightning will arc to other demons, who will arc it to other demons when they're killed. And something I had way too much fun doing was whipping out the Skull Crusher Pulverizer, a new rapid-fire weapon that takes skulls for ammo and has a wide burst, and essentially push the charge throughout the battlefield, in a way that kind of felt like moving water on a floor with a squeegee, if that makes sense. This is a Doom game where I felt motivated to be playful, try out different combos, try different tricks, try to combine tricks. Can I electrify an enemy and then pincushion blast them so I'm damaging other demons with both arc lightning and splash damage? Can I saw a cacodemon and then hit him with the grenade launcher so it rains cluster bombs on a wider area? Sure, this experimentation led to lots and lots and lots of deaths, but the generous checkpoints and lightning-fast loading made this less of an annoyance. But at the same time, even if you don't dig into the more advanced stuff and just play this game from a more casual standpoint, focusing on getting your parries and using the most powerful weapon for the moment, it's still a blast. In all, the best way I can describe the combat is pure methodical recklessness, and it's beautiful. There's that part of me that wants to say, it won't be everyone's cup of tea, and yeah, it won't. But at the same time, I don't really agree with myself there. I think id has created one of their finest combat systems that I think is approachable to FPS players of all skills, and can be truly played however they want at maximum enjoyment. If you want to turn your brain off and play off instinct and reflexes, guess what? You'll have fun. If you want to dig into the systems for high-level play, guess what? You'll have fun. The real drawback is, yes, it takes longer to warm up to compared to the last two games. Longer than you think. But when you get there, especially after purchasing the necessary upgrades, my god, is it worth it. id somehow managed to mix the advanced technical satisfaction of Eternal with the simple run-and-gun charm of 2016 and the older games. And it works. Many of you will agree with that, many of you won't. And I don't care, because this combat poked my brain in all the right ways. With the new horizontal vibe to combat comes a fresh take on level design to facilitate it, that is once again unique to the series while also harkening back to the classic titles. Dark Ages levels feature wide-open, non-linear design meant for epic battles against hordes of demons, as well as exploration to hunt down secrets and collect resources for upgrading. Now, while these maps are certainly wide open, it's not to the degree of, say, I don't know, a Borderlands map? No, these are still focused maps featuring all the qualities of id's signature map design. Like, think of the non-linearity of the old-school Doom maps, how with some of them you had multiple pathways right off the bat you could choose from to explore, veering into separate sectors that more often than not looped in on each other. It's like that, just scaled up. And I think it works really well. It still provides the focused combat thrust you want from a Doom game, while at the same time emulating big medieval battles. And actually, come to think of it, bringing back the big mob battles of the classic games too. Dark Ages has a lesser focus on platforming compared to Eternal and 2016 as well, due to its horizontal focus, but we do see it return with an emphasis on climbing, and for me it was just the right amount of it, appropriately breaking up the pace of the levels but not distracting from the main gameplay, which I felt Eternal's platforming sections sometimes did. And while exploring, you will find secret areas to break up the pace. More on those in a bit. But alongside the more open maps, there are more traditional Doom maps featured. And when I say traditional, I mean traditional. Lots of square, intersecting corridors broken up by smaller arenas, with progression driven by collecting multicolored keys to unlock various doors. And while combat in these maps aren't quite to the scale of the wide open maps, it makes them more concentrated combat puzzles where utilizing your weapon abilities is key. Id also takes advantage of their linear design to bring more focused atmosphere, typically to heighten tension. The Sentinel Barracks is a good example of this, as in the beginning you see quakes shake dust off the ceilings and nervous soldiers preparing for the coming demon onslaught. I also have to shout out the new Cosmic maps, which are a welcome addition to the Doom universe. Aesthetically, they're in line with similar Lovecraftian media. In fact, before traveling to the Cosmic realm, you go through a spooky, barnacle-encrusted ship graveyard/prison, the type of nautical spookiness common of cosmic horror. And then entering the realm proper, it's a surreal landscape of impossible structures, impossible physics, and impossible beasts, a more subdued creepiness compared to the gory, in-your-face suffering brought by the hell levels. Oh hey, what are we cooking? People? Nice. Never change, hell. These levels also do something I haven't seen a Doom game do since Doom 3. Mess with your mind, like endless hallways and level layouts suddenly changing. It's done to a minor degree, but is delightfully alarming when it does happen. In all, the Cosmic Realm is a great change of pace, and I'm hoping to see more of it in future DLC and future titles. A criticism I do have is that on the map screen, id made the choice of showing where all the secrets and collectibles are hidden, which I feel was an error. The problem is that I feel like I'm just running around a map checking things off of a checklist, instead of, exploring and making discoveries. True, I could just not look at the map, but that's easier said than done. And there's already visual hints in the maps to where the secrets are hidden, so why point them out on the map in the first place? To be fair, when you go to these locations, they often have surprise combat challenges, puzzles, or all three, which is awesome. I enjoyed how they broke up the main gameplay, but wouldn't those feel more special if the player discovered them themselves instead of being shown where to go? Ow. A big surprise for Doom the Dark Ages is that id has included some vehicle-based minigames to break up the core gameplay, which are interesting. The big standout is the Atlan missions, where the Slayer controls a giant hulking mech. The presentation of these missions is impressive as you shake the earth with each footstep and watch buildings crumble around you, showing off Dark Age's impressive destruction physics. And you gotta love squishing all those little demons around you. Hey, stop being mean to my friends. Combat is like Rock'em Sock'em Robots on steroids. Going up against the hulking titans, you'll hurl your big metal fists into their jaws, while dodging their very telegraphed attacks, all to charge up a devastating special attack to finish them off. Although there are brief moments where the game will lend you a unique weapon, like a ginormous chain gun and a shotgun. I was initially pretty critical of these missions simply because I wish there was more to them. What you're seeing here is pretty much all they are, a lot of punching and easy dodging and easy finishers. And after playing the blisteringly technical madness that is the main gameplay, they're not the most stimulating of experiences. That's my fancy way of saying they're kinda boring. My opinion softened in my later playthroughs though. For one, I realized how rock solid the final level of it was. The final boss for it was way too much of a pushover, just a longer version of the standard fights. Great kill animation though. Ugh, look how wiggly and squid-like he is. But the level leading up to it has you fighting multiple demons at a time, making you have to focus on the environment as well as keeping an eye on them. And it puts you in some tricky dodge situations where you're fending off two charging titans with the chain gun while a background enemy shoots at you. It's a way more satisfying challenge compared to the Atlan missions before. I don't know, this may be kind of a hot take, but I feel like something along the lines of this level should have been the first Atlan mission, that built up to something crazy in the way a penultimate Doom level should be. However, the other thing I realized is that this is also simple video game fun. A whole lot of, wee, I'm in a giant mech and smashing stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes I think it's good to have a little bit of that in these games. Although if the Atlan missions return in Dark Age's planned campaign DLC, I would love to see their gameplay deepened and provide a lot more challenge. What I enjoyed a lot more were the Dragon missions, where the Slayer pilots a cybernetic dragon who is just the goodest boy. Like the Atlan missions, there's a lot of simple fun to these sections. The dragon, in fact, is really enjoyable to control. Steering him around with my mouse was honestly pretty relaxing, and going turbo made me feel like a rocket, and zooming through narrow tunnels reminded me of the Death Star run in Return of the Jedi. The combat is not at all what I expected, being largely stationary with you having to dodge projectiles to charge up your shots for extra damage. They were fine though, and felt somewhat reminiscent of an on-rail shooter. It's a shame we don't have any proper dogfighting combat in these sections though. There are portions where you can chase down winged demons, which I probably enjoyed the most due to the dragon's tight control, but I can't help but wonder if these can't be iterated on to be more challenging and combat focused. Like the Atlan missions, if the dragon sections return in the DLC, perhaps they can be pushed further. But for me, the best aspect of these missions was the structure of them. You're not on the dragon the whole time. You actually have to land at various points, which lead you into self-contained combat arenas and mini-maps with their own secrets and objectives. There's also secret portions you can land at too. And I just thought this was really cool. It gives these maps a much more epic scope, somewhat mimicking open world grandeur without being open world. And the dragon ended up serving as a good device to break up the pace of them. The ultimate form of this was the Spire of Narathul, where the Slayer has has to fly around this big prison in an effort to free a Cthulhu-looking elder god. The flying portions are at their peak here, but the areas you land on are strongly designed, with focused combat challenges and good exploratory elements. Seriously, I hope id pushes this sort of level design more in their future titles, because I think they're onto something pretty awesome here. And now we come to the ooh, shiny portion of the video. Every id Software game, especially every Doom game, is always a showcase of state-of-the-art graphics tech as well as raw gaming performance, and the Dark Ages is no different. With this new entry, we are introduced to the 8th iteration of the famous id Tech engine, and the big technical push this time around is ray-traced global illumination, characterizing environments with realistic direct and indirect lighting, and I think the results speak for themselves. Environments are bathed in gorgeous lighting, giving the highly detailed models and textures a greater feeling of tangibility. The indirect lighting gives everything a softer, more atmospheric feel that is both moody and menacing, not to mention the arresting reflections defining your weaponry as well as the reflective surfaces in the environment. But artistically, it makes the game look almost like a painting come to life, like concept art perfectly translated into the engine. I said the same thing in my Doom 2016 video, but one of the funnest things about capturing footage for this game was turning off the HUD and just looking at it. Just to gush a little more, there are some visuals here that just floored me, like god rays shining on a statue or evil red glows eking through clouded windows. Oh, it's so good. If you haven't checked out Digital Foundry's tech breakdown of the Dark Ages yet, I highly recommend it. They do a great job going through how the tech and lighting works. I have it linked down in the description. Complementing all of this is the fact that maps are visually dynamic, making them feel alive. There's incredible weather effects with realistic wind and rain, leaves and other debris fluttering throughout, not to mention flying ships battling in the background along with various supernatural terrors looming in the sky. A lot of people have also been gushing over the new destruction mechanics, and for good reason. They are amazing. The physics and weight of them are impressively realistic, and I have to say one of the simple pleasures I had with this game was demolishing just about every statue I came across. It would be cool to see this destruction aspect used as a proper mechanic someday instead of just window dressing, whether it be in a future Doom game or another title built in id Tech 8. In fact, if Machine Games uses this engine in a speculative sequel to Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, I could see these destruction techniques having some use for that sort of game. And performance was borderline perfect, at least on my rig. This game ran like melted butter down a superheated titanium sheet, and yes, I think Doom deserves that sort of elaborate description. There was one moment in the final Atlan mission when my frames tanked for some reason. I don't know why, and I've never been able to repeat it. But that's just to say there's a chance you can run into some hiccups. But otherwise, this game was like silk on porcelain. Smooth. The art direction is also strong, beautifully utilizing id Tech's horsepower. It largely takes the sci-fi medieval fantasy aesthetics introduced in Eternal and makes them the main feature, while also pushing them further. And I do think it's a refreshing and necessary change-up for this series. I'm happy this is not another game set in a UAC facility on Mars or Hell on Earth. And I feel like the Sentinel worlds and culture are better visually fleshed out and characterized compared to Eternal and the Ancient Gods. The Hell levels, I feel, harken more to the Hell aesthetics found in the classic Doom titles, with sinister, monolithic buildings, gore, and plenty of skulls everywhere, which was a bit of a letdown for me. Don't get me wrong, these levels look great, but I love the aesthetics of the Hell levels in Eternal. I enjoyed that they were different, a fresh take on a very familiar realm. However, to be fair, the late game Harbor of Souls does provide a fresh aesthetic for the underworld that I did enjoy, with its cooler blue hues and sinister stonework. In fact, it kind of felt in line with some of the Hell levels in Doom 64. I spoke about the cosmic levels earlier, but I'll reiterate, I think they look phenomenal. For me, they are the visual standouts of the Dark Ages, and a great new addition to Doom's blood-stained visual tapestry. I really want to see more of them in future games. Naturally, a big part of any Doom game's presentation is the soundtrack. Dark Ages music carries some baggage due to the unfortunate crumbling of id Software's partnership with Mick Gordon, who redefined what a Doom soundtrack should be in 2016 and Eternal. It sucks he's gone, but if he was truly in a toxic situation, I'm glad he's out. I've had some jobs like that myself, and it just demolishes your mental health. With his absence, composer group Finishing Move was brought in to score the game. And I'll just tell you right now, do I think the music is as good as Gordon's? No. But I do think it's really good. To my ears, it seems to follow a similar blueprint to Gordon's music. Heavy, bassy riffs slathered in synths with occasional but big hits of symphonic tones and choirs, with a furious speed to it that accents and complements the sound effects of your weapons, as if you were shooting the music yourself out the guns. It's pure heavy metal splendor that perfectly put me in the doom-slaying mindset. And I will echo many creators who have suggested it, but make sure you go into the audio mix and crank the music up to 10 and lower the effects. The default mix is too low, and this makes a huge difference. If I had a critique of it, I wish it took more chances. As I said, it sticks fairly close to Mick's style, at least that's how it sounds to me. I'm sure that was probably what they were contracted to do, but my favorite bits of the soundtrack is when they get a little more playful with the synths, or experimental in the cosmic realm, or really lean into the symphonic aspects in Hell. If Finishing Move continues working on Doom games, I would love to see them put more of their unique stamp on Doom's music. The last thing I'll say about the soundtrack is some of the songs sample a classic Doom tune from one Aubrey Hodges that put a big smile on my face when I heard it in gameplay. In fact, here, humor me for a second, I'm gonna try something. Sick. Finally, we come to the narrative, being one of the Dark Ages' most impressive and disappointing aspects. To remind, Dark Ages takes place in between Doom 64 and Doom 2016. The Sentinels and Makers are at war with the forces of Hell, and the Slayer has already become a god through the Divinity Machine, under control by the Makers, who keep him mind-controlled as evidenced by his IDDQD eyes. The forces of Hell fear the Slayer, which irks the big bad villain, Prince Azrak, who cannot claim total dominance over Hell while the demons fear the Slayer.
All the power of Hell, cowering before one man.
id treated the narrative as one of the core pillars of the game, basically going all summer blockbuster with this one, and thus the Dark Ages features a bevy of cinematics that are quite impressive. For one, they look amazing, beautifully cinematic and finely directed, featuring solid voice performances with incredible animation work and lighting, all in engine too.
Stronger than maybe even you. But the heart is incomplete. It's made up of two parts. The other half is a power source, and we don't know where it is.
They felt like a visual treat, bringing me back to the old days when video game cutscenes felt like a reward for progression. The story has a great, exciting rise to it, as we're introduced to the world, the conflicts at hand, and the characters. But then at the midpoint, the story just flatlines. For me, I wasn't crazy about the overall plot, being pretty boilerplate basic. Essentially, what we learn is that the demons are after a sentinel relic called the Heart of Argent, which will give Azrak immense power, more so than the Slayer. And the big twist is that the Heart of Argent is a wraith spirit trapped within Princess Thera. So she gets kidnapped, and the Slayer goes on a rescue mission to save her. And from there, it's pretty by the numbers and very predictable. To be fair, there is a lot of fascinating lore you can uncover, further detailing all the stuff surrounding this plot. But that wasn't enough to keep me from being bored with it in the final act. The thing is, I'd be more forgiving of the plot if I was given a reason to care about the characters introduced. It's not that they're bad, I actually think they're all quite interesting, but they're barely developed, past their codex entries, and feel too archetypal and surface. Novik is the wise king that we've seen in a billion fantasy stories, same with Thera, the righteous heir to the throne who has more power than she realizes. And I could have told you right from the second we meet Creedmaker that he was going to betray everyone. Even Azrak is probably the most uninteresting villain of this trilogy, just a big bad power-hungry demon and not much else. He's no better than your average MCU villain. And I thought we were going to get a lot more out of the Cosmic Witch, who I thought was pretty interesting, but she just ends up being a big exposition dumper who is killed off, although there's a chance we'll be seeing her again.
They fear him, and so your dominion over hell is not absolute.
The only character I really cared about was the Doomslayer, who barely saves the story. Oh, and the dragon too. Good boy. And this is largely because I've had 2 games already building up the mystique of him, as well as teasing his time spent with the Night Sentinels, and seeing him under Maker control, resisting his imprisonment, was fascinating. Plus, id has really gotten down expressing his personality through body language. Yes, the Slayer is a simple man, but he speaks loads through his actions. For instance, after defeating Azrak and saving Thera, he just turns around and plops the Heart of Argent in Novik's hand and is like, cool, I'm done, bye. I don't know, I just get a kick out of that. And I, like I'm sure many Doom fans, gasped when his helmet was removed and I saw how young he looks.
He's just a kid. No older than my son.
The standout moment in the narrative is when the Slayer has, for once, an honest-to-God setback, getting captured by Azrak and having to break out of an Elder God prison, dying in the process and waking up in hell as a zombie. Real quick, the fact that they changed the portrait to Zombie Doom Guy is a legendary touch. It's a fun sequence for the character all around, with some nice hits of humor. I really wish the game had more of these kind of moments. When I reached the final missions, I couldn't help but feel that id didn't quite know how to end the game. I mean, you literally hit a mission called the Final Battle where you have an epic boss fight against Azrak, and I mean epic. A straight up parry fest where the slightest mistake will mean you're doom. The challenge is on point and a ton of fun, and finally beating him made me feel like Palpatine after blasting Mace out the window. Especially after this horned fool killed the one other character I give a damn about. Aw, buddy. But then the game continues on for one more mission, an all-out Sentinel assault on Hell, with the Slayer battling through some of the toughest demon hordes of the game, eventually reaching Azrak again, and with the exception of the Cosmic Witch backing him up, it's more or less the same fight with them. And don't get me wrong, it's once again a good boss fight, but I couldn't help but feel, okay, we're doing this again? Alright. And the fact that he's not in his mega form this time makes it feel less impactful. I mean, for me, the game logically ended in the mission before. Perhaps this last mission would have made sense as the opening level for the upcoming DLC. But then again, I don't know what id is planning, so I guess I'm kinda talking out my ass there. Eventually, the Slayer beats both of them and the day is saved. Woo! And I was left underwhelmed. I think another one of my issues here is both Doom 2016 and Eternal had full, complete narratives. Yes, they might have cliffhangered some things, but they left me feeling like things were complete, and I was satisfied. With the Dark Ages, it's not a complete story, it's clearly the first part of it, and it's hard not to walk away wanting more. Which isn't entirely a bad thing, but after 22 missions, it's hard not to be let down by this.
They want assurances, and so did I.
I'm sure many of you watching through this section have been thinking, it's a Doom story, who cares? And yeah, honestly, there's a part of me that wants to write it off as that too. But nah, I'm not gonna do that. Look, I don't care how goofy, absurd, or just plain stupid a story universe is. Good writing and storytelling are always appreciated by people and go a long way in elevating a property, and every time it happens, it's always embraced. It's important to emotionally engage your audience, have characters they can connect to, have stakes that feel truly dire. Yes, even in a Doom game, because otherwise you're just leaving them indifferent, and indifference is the death of art. If id Software wants to push the boundaries of this franchise's narrative, they need to step their game up. Pretty cutscenes and codex entries aren't enough. And if not, then they should go back to telling the story like they did in 2016, and leave the rest up to the imagination of their players. Doom: The Dark Ages is almost a masterpiece. For me, id Software has created one of their more insanely fun combat systems that offered a unique take on their shooter formula while still having all the qualities I want from a Doom game. The only drawback being it takes a little more for it to fully click compared to its predecessors. But when it did for me, man, I was obsessed. I'm still obsessed. And the audio and visual presentation once again are firing on all cylinders, with beautifully rendered levels and a soundtrack that doesn't reach Mick Gordon highs, but had me headbanging nonetheless. What holds this one back is the underwhelming exploration and vehicle minigames that are enjoyable but could have been pushed further, as well as the story that starts out strong but then just falls flat with uninspired writing and a stock plot. Now, in comparing it to its predecessors, it doesn't hit the same highs. In my opinion, 2016 and Eternal are about as close to perfect as shooters can get. But at the same time, this is still one of the funnest Doom games I've ever played, and one of the funnest shooters I've ever played, and I will always appreciate a developer that will take a chance and do something different with a long-running franchise. It's risky, but when it works, it's wonderful. Of course, there's going to be polarization, debating, and hot takes around this Doom game, as there is with every Doom game. Honestly, I'd be concerned if there wasn't. And while it's easy to get swept up in the negatives of that, just remember, only a franchise like this could elicit such passionate reactions, and that's what I love about it. That's how you know something has true weight and importance in popular culture. Doom is eternal. But that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching this mega review on Doom: The Dark Ages. I went harder on this one because Doom is special to me, and I gotta say, this was one of the funner reviews I've done. I hope you all enjoyed it throughout. As always, please be sure to let me know in the comments your thoughts on Doom: The Dark Ages. I know you all have a lot of them, and, well, rip and tear, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, share, and smack that bell. If you want to come say hi, my Discord is linked below, along with my affiliate links. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.